Housing is amongst the top affordability issue in this election, and while much of that conversation is about buying a home, renters too face rising costs and real shortages. That's got some candidates talking about rent control. Justin Chandler covers the Hamilton-Niagara region for Ontario Hubs, and he joins us now on that. Hello, Justin.
Hey there, Jan.
All right, so you have been diving into rent control and talking to some experts. What have they said about sort of the conversation around that and why it's needed?
Yes, so a couple experts that I talked to for this article are Nimoy Lewis with Toronto Metropolitan University and Scott Leon with the Wellesley Institute. And what they were telling me is that rent control, which limits the amount that a landlord can raise the rent in between in between leases terms, is an important thing because it helps prevent prices from going up a lot on tenants. As we know, rents in Ontario have really shot up in the past several years. For many people, they've become unaffordable, and they say that rent control is a way that people can better plan because they know that their rent is only going to go up by a limited amount and not going to go up by any amount that the market will bear.
Now, there's been a lot of conversation, as you mentioned off the top, around sort of the housing affordability, but from the perspective of a home buyer, what did they have to say about sort of the conversation around rent and rent controls, that other side of the coin?
Yeah, so the other side of the coin, what some people would say is that rent control is actually not great because it limits the profits that like the home buyer or the property manager can get. So, for example, the Ontario government had previously, when they ended rent control on buildings built after 2018, they said that this was a way that they could get more homes built because people would be more keen to build rental housing because they could make more profits effectively. Now, Leon and Lewis, they disagreed with this. They say that that's not actually the case, that maybe people are building things, but they're not building affordable housing. So there is some debate there.
All right, so you had mentioned that the PC government removed rent controls on new rental units in 2018. Are there any indications that the PCs will change that policy if they're reelected June 2nd?
It seems not. They did not get back to me for my reporting, but they've previously told other media outlets that they stand by what they did. They think that they were able to create record new housing starts and that they think that their removal of rent control on new buildings was a good idea. And there's nothing about that in the Ontario budget, which is effectively serving as their platform. So it would seem that they're going to stick with the status quo.
All right, let's talk about a party that is planning on bringing that if they are elected. The NDP plans to do that. What specifically are they proposing around rent control?
Yes, so the NDP says they're going to bring back rent control onto all buildings, so not just buildings built before 2018. They also say that they're going to bring in vacancy control. So whereas rent control limits the amount that rent can go up between lease terms or every year, vacancy control limits what you can raise the rent in between tenants. So if somebody leaves their unit and then the new tenant comes in, currently landlords can put the price now at whatever they want. And so what Leon and Lewis were telling me is that this creates, I think Leon called it a perverse incentive in some cases, because you maybe want tenants to leave because that means that you can get maybe significantly more profit. And they say that this contributes to, for example, rent evictions where landlords decide to make some changes to a unit and maybe in a way that forces a tenant to leave for a while so they can do some upgrades, and then maybe the tenant just gets frustrated and don't come back. And then they can raise the rent more, they can attract higher paying tenants and earn more profits. So the idea of vacancy decontrol is that it should try to eliminate this incentive and mean that rents stay more affordable and that when somebody leaves, you're not losing an affordable unit. So the other thing that the NDP have said is that they're going to work on stopping unfair evictions. They're also saying they will be investing in the supply of rental housing, and they say that they're going to establish a new public agency that's going to be building and then operating, I think they said 250,000 affordable and non-market rental units.
All right, so it looks like the NDP have a plan there. I'm curious to know, when we bring in the Liberals, how does their plan differ from, say, the PCs or the NDP?
So the Liberals are also saying that they want to bring in rental control, but unlike the NDP, they're not saying they're going to bring in vacancy control. They are saying, though, they're going to have plans to make it easier to build additions onto rental units, and they'll also have a plan to build 1.5 million homes in 10 years. The PCs have said the same thing, that they're going to build 1.5 million homes. And the Liberals told me that they're going to make 138,000 deeply affordable rental units.
And to round it out, of course, the fourth major party, the Greens, what ideas do they have when it comes to combating housing unaffordability, specifically in the renters market?
Yeah, the Greens are also talking about rent control. They're saying they'd bring in that. They're saying they'd bring in vacancy control. They also said they're going to bring in a system to limit above guideline increases. That's when a landlord can apply to the Landlord Tenant Board, and they can say that they've got some repairs to make, and so they want to raise the rent. And this is something that some experts say can be abused, so that maybe it's a repair that's not super necessary, but then rent goes up. So the Green Party says they're going to bring in some sort of rules to regulate this. They also say that they're going to build 182,000 new affordable rental units, and they're talking about forcing new projects of a certain size to include 20% affordable homes.
Justin, really appreciate your time on the program. Thank you so much for giving us some insight on the rent control ahead of the June 2nd election. Thank you.
You're welcome. You take care.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.